It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job, episode 131 today. My name is Mike. That's Brian.
Yo, today, Mr. Mike Echelmeier. Echelmeier, I almost messed that up. Echelmeier Consulting and Constructability Review, the owner, founder, CEO, president.
All the above.
You name it, that's him. How you doing?
It's a mouthful. Good. Really good. Excited to be here.
How do you fit all that in a business card?
It's a big business card.
Short. ECCR. That's it.
Very cool. Well, just to give everybody, our tens of listeners, a quick background on Mike. My neighbor, Chris Echelmeier, who is a longtime listener, and if he's not, I know he's listening to this episode, he's got some catching up to do, but is cousins with Mike and turned me on to Mike, and that's how we started our conversations. And then, just on the phone, I think last week, right, Mike? You were telling me some crazy fun stories, so I think
give you a little background.
Yeah.
Version.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. So tell us how you got started in the construction industry and how you got to where you're at, wearing basically every owner's hat at Echelmeier Consulting and Constructability Review, ECCR. Let's say it that way.
ECCR, that's it. Keep it simple. It actually goes back to my dad. He was, Villanova graduate and back east and moved out here and basically started working with Caltrans way back when and on bridge engineering side. So he was moving up the ladder real quick and he knew his next promotion was basically going to be running Caltrans and it was going to keep him embedded in California for a long time. And he always had a travel bug. So he quit his job right before he was getting a promotion and took the whole family overseas, all over Southeast Asia. So he was working with different contractors out there as bridge engineers, chief engineers all over Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam.
Wow.
So we I got very interested in construction. My other three siblings, they never really took the construction path, but they were right along on that tour all over Southeast Asia. So like Vietnam, he was rebuilding bridges that were blown up. So that was definitely an experience that we always talk about. We were living in Saigon. You could hear bombs going off in the distance. And every morning my dad would drive over the job site and see bodies stacked up on the side of the road.
Jeez. And why were they being bombed? Was it
was back in 74, the Vietnam War.
Yeah, kind of. Well, no, I understand that.
Remember that thing? Remember that one
small 12-year war that we had? Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is while the war was happening that you guys were out there.
Yeah, it was towards the tail end.
Got it.
70s. So I was pretty young, but still remember a lot of it. And fortunately, I took a lot of pictures. So and then actually I heard. My dad and I went up to Everest for his 75th birthday. So I got a lot of stories then. When you're little, you don't really kind of remember all these things. But one of the stories he was telling me was he was out on the job site and there was a curfew. If you're out on the road after 10, they'll just shoot you. There's no questions asked.
Jeez.
So, so he was, he had a little apartment out there, out where the bridge he was building was. And he said it was really peaceful and quiet out there one night. And somebody's playing a harmonica out on one of the decks, and next thing he knows, this helicopter comes over the building, just opens fire on. I don't know if they didn't like the music or what the story was, but yeah, just opened fire on the building. And he said, he hit the ground, he crawled in the closet till the sun came out, and came home. We packed up our stuff and got out of Vietnam. Yeah, that was kind of the last experience in Vietnam. Pretty crazy.
A little different than most of the other job site stories we hear, but
it's like the COVID curfews at 10 o'clock. Can you imagine if that were the case?
And then we went to Indonesia. So he was responsible for basically we were out on an island in Indonesia, and he was building a offshore natural gas plant. So we're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old on this little island, and we basically just had free reign of this island. He was building a whole community, bringing in modular homes, and working on his project. So we'd be just kind of milling around the whole island. And there was a lot of interesting stories out there. It was always fun whenever we have go out camping with my daughter. She's always asking for all the stories of trips all over Southeast Asia. But it was awesome. So my dad was I mean, he'd tell me stories about building bridges out there in Bangladesh, and he's like, nobody wears shoes there. So not a lot of scaffolding. So he says some of the guys are moving rebar around. They're walking on the ends of rebar, like it's a number 12. So it's like 1.25 inches.
Whoa.
And their feet are just like, leather. So they're just like stepping along on the top of these rebar. Not real OSHA safe, but
right.
It's crazy. Yeah. Some of the stories he had out there, but anyway, so we were out there about 5-6 years all over Southeast Asia. We got to visit, Thailand, Indonesia before Eat, Pray, Love was out. So we're the beginning of that, and Bali and the Taj Mahal, all that stuff before it really got popular. And then when we came back to California, my dad stayed in construction. He was a truss engineer, truss plant, still stayed in the industry. And then I got really interested in it. I think I was really kind of going down the architecture route in high school. So I was taking all the drafting classes. That was really my only elective. I've never really got to take the wood shop, metal shop classes. So I drew my first house when I was a freshman in high school. So it was pretty cool, a little five-story house.
Tiny 5-story.
Yeah. And
this is like a wood shop but accelerated version.
yeah, definitely learned hands-on real quick. So that was really cool. My dad was the engineer on the house, so
that's rad.
Kind of worked out pretty nice. But then went down to Cal Poly for architecture. Had a great time down there.
Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, right?
Yep, San Luis Obispo. So I pretty much first year I was down there, my girlfriend and I decided we were going to live together, and we ultimately got married, and still married 30 years later. But that time my dad said, well, you're on your own. I'm not paying for school. I said, all right, that's fine. So I pretty much started a design business. So I was designing a lot of houses up and down the Pacific Coast for general contractors. I had 3 or 4 students working for me all through college. Also worked bartending and bouncing, school. It was still a little cheap there, but I had to pay for everything. So, so I had multiple jobs, but I got through Cal Poly. And then one of my clients was a general contractor down there, and started talking to him about going into construction. I wanted to do a double major in architecture and construction management. And he said, you get out of school, just come work for me for a while. You'll learn everything you need to know. So that's what I did. So I never really went down the architecture path other than the work I was doing through college, and just started working for general contractors. So mostly school construction, a lot of school construction, and constantly having battles with architects and owners, writing nasty grams about issues with the drawings and, that constant battle. So a lot of schools around the San Luis Obispo area, and then I started making my way north up here towards Sacramento, built prison in Coalinga, which was really fun, challenging experience there. And then came up to Sacramento, started building worked for a couple other contractors up here, building schools, juvenile detention facilities, and then I did a little while managing Gap outlet construction. So I got on with the Gap. Yeah, I wasn't selling shirts or shorts, but I was building the stores that I was selling them in. So I worked with I was the senior construction manager managing the outlet division all over the United States and Puerto Rico. So that was fun until their stock tanked.
Right.
And it's they're still in the shaky grounds. But that was back in 2001.
Were you traveling? Back in when?
2001.
Okay, so were you traveling quite a bit back then? I mean, if you were
actually it was I was traveling probably 15-20 days out of the month.
Wow.
So all over the United States, and there was a lot of just one days. You go fly to New York for the day, look at the site, construction, what it's going to take to build it, what it's going to cost, and then report that to upper management, and then evaluate the performance, see if it's going to be a go or no go, and then kind of manage it all through construction. So it was a lot of fun. Great people worked with. And then it was actually just right before 9/11 happened. They decided to close the Rockland division, and they kind of got rid of the outlet division. They kind of merged it back down to San Bruno, and kind of laid us all off with really good package. And I remember it was about the second week into it. I'm laying, in bed, sleeping in for a change and listening to the news. And that's when 9/11 hit, and that was, so it was literally a couple weeks after we got laid off. And I actually had some trips planned to New York, flying to New York and flying to Washington to look at some sites. And who knows what would have happened if, they didn't close the office.
Man.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy coincidence. So then I went back into construction, project manager, construction manager, worked for contractors again, and then got in with CMs. Yeah, so I started working for a construction management company. And at the time, they were just starting to kind of do constructability reviews. I was getting real frustrated with building buildings with incomplete drawings for whatever reason. So the CM firm I got on with, we really connected. There was another individual there that was really pushing for a constructability review. At the time, there wasn't really a process or any kind of method of doing a review. Typically, it was just a project manager was kind of waiting for the next job. They got handed a roll of drawings and said, here, go ahead, mark these things up, and then we'll give them to the architect to make corrections. So when we were there, I pretty much kind of helped develop an actual process of doing constructability reviews. We landed a really big contract with LAUSD. So we started doing all of their reviews. It was like 3 other people that were in the pool, but I think we did the majority of them. Los Angeles Unified School District. So then the drawings were getting so bad at the time that DSA, Division of State Architect, pretty much put the foot down and said, you know what, before you submit the drawings, you need to have a constructability review done. So you have a complete set of drawings before you submit. Because it was always a rush to get the drawings to DSA because they would sit for a while. So sometimes drawings would get submitted very incomplete. So
because they were sitting for a while, or why were they?
It was a time crunch.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and submit them. We'll put them in as a placeholder, and then we'll
I see.
get the revised drawings in. And sometimes they didn't have enough time to get the revised drawings.
Were you part of that process of? Were you part of that process of pushing to have everything go through that constructability review? Was that something that you're?
We didn't really promote it with DSA, but that's kind of DSA was the ones that said, you know what, these drawings need to be reviewed. You need to have an actual to the architectural firms that were submitting it to the owners. They're saying you need to do a constructability review before you submit it. So, and we just, I think it's just right about the same time that we started this program at the CM firm that it landed almost the exact same timing. So it really worked out well. We reviewed 90% of the high schools in LA. They had a huge bond program. And then I went away for a little bit. I went back out and working for a general contractor again, get some more experience. Went out to Saudi Arabia, which was an experience, working on a hospital for King Faisal out there. So, yeah.
How long was that project?
Maybe
I should ask, how long were you there for?
Yeah, I was there I made a 6-month commitment.
Okay.
So my daughter was getting ready to go to college, so I wanted to be back for that. And I said, hey, I'll go out, help get this program started, and then I'll come back. So it was really kind of early on in the design phase of things. So we were just trying to get the scope together, figure out what they wanted, what they needed, what it was going to take to get the hospital built and all that. So, and I mean, Saudi Arabia, I don't know if you know, it's just not like anybody can go to Saudi Arabia for a visit.
Yeah.
So again, just like my dad, when I got out of college, I really wanted to travel overseas in construction, but there weren't a whole lot of opportunities at the time. So it was great. I mean, it was a great experience. Did 2 3-month stints out there.
You working for like a contractor out there that was doing work, like an American contractor? What was the connection?
It was the same CM firm that I started the CR department with.
Okay.
So I went back to them. I said, hey, you got anything going? And they said, well, we got this job out in Saudi Arabia. You want to go out there? I said, sign me up. So it was great scuba diving out there. But really? That's pretty much it. A lot of hanging out with the guys.
Yeah.
Just not a lot of things to do out there, and you work 6 days a week.
Yep.
So that was one of the things I changed first. I said, can we make it like maybe 5.5 days? But yeah, so then I came back, and then I got on with another CM firm and actually started the CR department with them. And that was I did that for about 3 years, and then worked for another contractor. So I like to bounce around a lot.
I was gonna say,
well, you're in construction though. I feel like a lot of guys,
yeah. It is kind of part of the industry. You know, a lot of people do bounce around, but what I really liked about it is I got to see how different contractors operated, the different systems that they use, how they manage their jobs. And I knew ultimately it was going to result in something. So before I really kind of started on my own, I kind of started doing constructability review on the side. It was kind of like a little side hustle I was doing. I had a lot of clients that I'd worked with before. They'd call me up. They'd say, hey, I have a set of drawings here. I mean, it was contractors and CMs that were calling me, and architects. So I was kind of doing it on the side. And then the last job I finished with the contractor, I said, you know what, I'm just going to go full time. And that was about 3 years ago. So yeah, so I've been working with a lot of the CM firms that I started the CR department with, and have great relationships with them. I know how their office works, their company works. Fortunately, I haven't burned any bridges. So
no pun intended to your dad, right? Oh,
yeah, exactly. Because I mean, as you know, the construction industry is pretty small.
Yeah,
even though there's a lot
everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, word gets around quick. Yeah, so then, so here I am doing CR. So what I do is pretty much like a second set of eyes for the design team, not just architects, but the whole design team. So I have a team that I've worked with over really the last 20 years. When I did that first CR division at that CM firm, some of those people that we trained at the very beginning, I'm still working with. So we go through, and everybody's actually been out in the field. So they've actually been building buildings. They had their, boots dirty. They've, swung a hammer, although
seen it all happen before.
Swung a hammer, but they've learned how buildings actually go together, and just haven't sat behind a computer working on a CAD. So I have, a team of professionals. I got other architects. I got landscape architects. I've got general contractors, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, all the way down the line that help me on my reviews. So they're all consultants. So I kind of, depending on what the job is, what the project requirements need, I'll put a team together. Sometimes I have 20 people working on it. Sometimes it's just me and another guy or gal. So we go through the drawings, and it's a very tedious effort. I actually, when my dad retired as an engineer, I had him working on some structural reviews for me, and he's like, man, that's a hard thing you're doing. I'm like, yeah, it is, but the reward is, it's actually really rewarding, because part of the constructability review process is you first do the initial review, you give the drawings back to the design team, they make the changes, and then they give you another set of drawings, and they're like, all right, we made all the changes. So then we go through, and it's called a back check. We'll take those drawings, look at our original comment, and say, oh, yeah, you addressed it. Oh, well, now by making that change to address our issue, because we don't make any design changes, we just kind of identify issues that we see.
Right.
They will sometimes create another issue. So, by moving a door because it didn't have ADA clearance, now they've moved it to another place, and now we don't have access on the other side of the wall or something like that. So then now we have another comment. So then we'll go through that whole thing. But when I do that, I'll look and I'll see the impact that we made on those drawings. So that's really rewarding. It's like, all right, we're not just here, all right, you got a detail reference called out wrong. It's, we get down in the weeds, and we really look at every word that's on the drawings. We look at every detail. If there's SOLS reports, if there's product data, structural calcs, we go through all of those, and we make comments. Hey, you got, your submittal for your door hardware as your product cut sheet doesn't match your specifications. You got contracts that can be going, all right, what do you guys want to do? So we address these issues before they go out to bid. or even, I mean, we work on design build projects too. So we have contractors that will call us and say, hey, we have an architect we're, you know, teaming up with, and we're not real confident in their drawings. We want to address all the issues before we actually get out in the field. So they will spend the money to have us review the drawings, and the architect will go through them and fix them up, and, you know, and have a smoother process. So
here's a silly question, or something that might be a silly question. Why aren't you just an architect firm then? That gives out perfect drawings, right? I mean,
yeah, it's well,
do it the right way the first time.
I had some of my clients that are architects want me to go work for them. Self-employed has got its ups and downs, but
right.
more ups and downs. But it's not just me. So I've got a whole team of people that work for me. So a lot of architects, they do their own QC. But that's, you know, as architects, I
was going to say, at that point, you're kind of proud though, like, right? You don't want to change things because you drew it the first time. You don't have that second set of eyes that's what do I want to say? Doesn't have any skin in the game, right? I mean, you guys, right? It doesn't matter to you if you move that door because the door doesn't belong there. So, right, you don't have pride that you drew it and you're not the construction guy who put it up. So it doesn't matter, you know, on either side for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's, in a lot of CM firms will say they do constructability review because they're trying to get in on the construction management of the whole program.
Right.
What I like about what I do is I have, just like you said, no skin in the game. I'm not looking to try to buy any more work down the line in terms of construction management. I'm just here to help the client. That's it. I want you to spend your money appropriately. You know, I don't want you to spend money on change orders. I'd rather that money to go into additional classrooms, additional improvements, additional buildings. So you don't have to carry a, you know, 30% change order contingency. You can instead put that money into actual buildings.
Are you getting hired by the general contractor more often than the architect?
Actually, it's probably,
or maybe the owner, the project owner.
It's probably 80% is construction managers.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're in, I will team with them. They'll hire me. We'll go in together, independent. So probably about 80% is construction managers. Probably about another 10 is contractors, another 10 is architects. It's kind of how it breaks down. But yeah, the majority is, and the majority of the work is schoolwork. So they have, you know, a lot of bond money. They've got to be respectable of that money. I've done some private work too. I've done hotels, bank buildings, just a shell bank building. You know, the owner was smart enough to say, hey, let's make sure we get these drawings right so the contractor doesn't have issues. We've done resorts. So the majority is mostly public work projects, hospitals, schools, prisons, things like that. But yeah, but everybody, I mean, to be honest, it's a good idea to just comb. I mean, I have friends that have drawings for their houses, like, hey, can you look through these drawings for me? So I'll just do some stuff like that. Yeah. You know, it's as easy as a house is, there's still some things that, you know, have conflicts that people don't really realize that haven't really been in it. So
from a process standpoint, is it just you and your experience being able to kind of go through those drawings page by page, knowing what to look for, or do you actually have a physical checklist of things that you look for? Like, hey, I'm going to comb through for all 88 mistakes, and then I just go through there and do that, and then now I'm going to do whatever it is. How does that process work for you?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So when we first developed the CR program at that first CM firm, we put an approach together. So there is the whole process that everybody goes through when they do a review. It's not just kind of like, okay, what was the last change order I had on a job, or what was the last issue I saw? There's actually checklists from lessons learned from some projects of review that we've built, that we've got RFIs and, you know, change orders, and we kind of develop a checklist. So we'll go through the checklist. So there is a process, and what we do is we build the building on paper from the ground up. So from the contractor moving on the site, mobilizing, okay, so they have access, they have laydown areas, where's the staging going to be, is it occupied, how are they going to keep the students away, people away from the construction site, is it remodel, addition. So basically we're looking at the contractor, and all the trades are doing the same thing. All right, so my contractor is going to move on site. what's he going to start working on? He's going to start working on underground. So where are the points of connection? You start looking at those, start coordinating all the drawings, looking at the civil with the architectural, the plumbing and everything, and just kind of coordinating like they are actually building the site, building a building out on site.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it is a systematic approach that we go through, and we do it all in on a Bluebeam. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's basically,
we've heard the name on here. Obviously, we don't interact with it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a great software program. I've been working with them since almost Bluebeam started, which was really neat. They're a really small little group, so I could, pretty much call them, pick up the phone and say, hey, can you have it do this? And like, well, not right now, but we'll put that on our list. So yeah, I was involved with them early on, and it's a great system.
Cool.
So we can, it's called the studio session. So you can put documents on there and have up to 100 people looking at the documents in real time. You can see their comments. You can make comments to what they're doing. You can see what they're doing. You can follow along. And it's all posted on the cloud, so the drawings never go away, and nobody's going to change your comments or your issues or your markups or anything like that. So there's a big hospital project I'm working on up in Portland that we have probably almost 100 people working on it at the same time.
Wow.
And this is real early on design, great project. So this is, you name it, every drawing is in there, every document's in there, and everybody's working together, and it's a really collaborative program. So that's how we do our reviews, is all in on the Bluebeam Studio session, and give the design team access to it. They can want it while
Everybody
we're doing
can
it,
see it,
see it, or they can do
happening
it
in
at
real
the-
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for some of maybe the smaller design build guys that might be listening, or that this is not obviously you're working for huge public work projects, but for some of the smaller guys that maybe do some design builds, what is the most I guess most common mistakes, or the most common things that you guys are correcting in what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, really, just get down to the basics. The points of connections, the invert elevations are wrong; they don't match, which you'd think would be pretty easy.
Yeah.
What's out on site? So we do a site visit on every job. Just actually going out on the site with a fresh set of eyes and say, wait a second, where's this? You have a light post here in the middle of the site, and there's nothing that says on the demo sheets to get rid of this light post. What are you going to do? That's where the building is. I mean, as basic as that. I mean, that's
Right.
not a huge issue, but hey, it all adds up. You know,
Yeah.
I went out on the site once, and it was a building that was being demoed. And it just said demo building. I go out there and I realize that there's actually a mechanical basement under the building. It's like 12 feet deep.
Jeez,
Right?
dude.
And there's nothing on the drawings that shows that there's a, mechanical basement under. So something like that, that's going to be a big issue. There's nothing that says what to do once you demo it out. So sure enough, in the back check, they added notes. They added civil requirements for backfilling, compaction requirements, and all that. That if they went out on the street, there would have been a huge change order.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still money to do that work that would have went in the bid, but a lot less than if it would have come up during construction.
Yeah. Well, and I got to imagine too, you're helping everybody on every side, right? You're helping the contractor, you're helping the owner of the project, you're helping the architects, because you're streamlining the efficiency up front, right? You're getting everything squared away so that, change orders make money. And I understand there are some contractors out there that try to make a buck that way. They lowball their bids, and then they figure they're going to make it up on the change order side of things. But I feel like most contractors, and some of my buddies who are contractors, that's not how they like to do business. I think you and I shared a story last week where I was telling you about my buddy who was doing a large deck for a huge building, and it was, I think the drawings called for 1/4 inch gaps in between the planks for that deck. And when the owner's wife went out there, she couldn't walk with her heels on, and, starts yelling at the contractor, and he's trying to figure out, now he's got to bring his guys back out, and he's got to pull guys from another project. I mean, it creates all sorts of issues, and he did it to spec, right? So, it's just one of those things where if he had somebody like you coming in and cleaning that up at the get-go, making sure that everybody was on the same page, and then you come in and actually do the project per the drawing, then you're good, right?
Yep.
Everybody,
Oh, yeah.
you say the owner saves money, the contractor's happy because they don't have to like move guys around and struggle with how they're going to figure things out. And they can move on to the next project, and everybody's happy with you. And then you got more work later on, right? So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was the thing, it's all the projects I've worked on is, you're dealing with change orders constantly. And just like you said, I hated change orders. Yeah, I made some money on them. Company made money on them. But the reality is that the pain that you go through on a change order. Okay, something comes up. Well, I know some of your past people on here say they hated, PCOs, potential change orders. Well, okay, you're not going to stop the job because of this change order.
right.
You just can't. The schedule doesn't allow it. So then now you got to figure out what you're going to do. How are you going to address this thing right away? School districts aren't that quick in responding. So do you say, all right, nope, now you got to move somewhere else? So you got to try to get them moving forward, and then you got to deal with the architect on whether it's a change order or not, and then the owner. And I mean, the reality is no change orders get you done and out, even on a hard bid job. Everybody has a good memory of the project, and then the contractor's moving on to the next project. You got those opportunity costs. You're able to figure out when the job's really going to be done. A lot easier without change orders. So that was really what got me into the CR, is that I just got tired of dealing with change orders and potential change orders and delays and schedule delays and all that because of issues with the drawings. And, I'm not saying architects are terrible. I mean, they've got a lot to deal with when they put a set of drawings together. It's not an easy thing at all.
It's not like drawing on a paper napkin or anything.
Yeah.
There you go. Here's your building.
Thing. But so that's why our approach is always we're part of the team. We're there we're not writing snide comments to the design team. We're like, hey, we see this as a potential issue. We don't solve it, but we say you need to look at this connection. Yeah. You're not going to be able to put the bolt in because of the angle of this beam. Maybe come up with a different connection. So we get really down in the weeds of looking at how the buildings are put together. So it's something that we really, really focus on, is not just these superficial comments of, detail issues or spelling issues, which some people consider that a constructability review. We don't. We look at program requirements, just like you're saying, the deck has a gap. Well, all right, well, what's the church going to use this deck for? Is it, going to be a dance class, or what's it going to be? And then we'll look at, okay, well, there's going to be people with heels out there, just like you said.
Yep.
You don't want a gap out there. There's people are going to be tripping,
Yep.
Even though that's all that's required. So we'll look at that. We'll look at, a school we're looking at right now has a kiln room. Well, there's really no place to work on the pottery. It's got a great little room for the kiln, but there's no area to work on the pottery. There's no hose off area, like a trash can wash area. So these are comments that we'll make, even though we don't have the program requirements, but we're like, this room isn't going to really be able to function the way we think you're going to need it to function.
Right.
You might want to look at it. So we'll look at and make comments about program, or, if the storage room is only, 3x3, is like, really, you're not going to get much out of that storage.
A mop and a bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
So from a marketing standpoint, do you keep metrics on, I don't know, I guess your effectiveness or how you're able to kind of assist in the process? Is that something you guys can track or be able to have metrics on?
Yeah, well, right now I have 450 constructability reviews I've done since I started on that first CM firm. So I've got a lot of reviews. Not once have I got a call back from a client that said, hey, we had this beam conflict. Why didn't you pick that up? Or, why didn't you pick up this basement that wasn't shown on the drawing? So I haven't got an issue like that, fortunately, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But what I do is I will go back since I work with some of these CM firms that actually manage the work after the review's done, I'll go back and look at what those RFIs are and change orders, and do kind of a update on my checklist. And the majority of them, the architect has 3 years to design a building. We have typically 3 weeks. to do our review.
That's insane. Yeah.
So it's a really quick, short window of time that we have to go through these drawings, and we're not perfect. We're not going to pick everything up. We try to pick everything up, but the majority of the things that I see is things that are in walls, and we don't do any destructive investigation. We'll peek our head above a T-bar ceiling once in a while, but we really see that's the majority of the stuff that's underground. Even though we'll review as-built drawings, being a contractor, I
They're
know
still not right. Yeah.
accuracy of as-built drawings.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is kind of what we see. Haven't really had any kind of matrix I put together in terms of like cost of change orders. We did a big program out in Charleston, South Carolina. I looked at those change orders, and they were maybe 1%, 2% on those jobs that we reviewed, and a lot of them were historical renovations. So preservation. We had a school out there that was a historical building, and they needed to keep the facade on 3 sides of the building, 4 stories high.
Ooh.
So we had to tear the whole building down behind the facade, and then build a new building in front behind it. So that was a real interesting project, because you have all the shoring on this facade that's 3 or 4 stories high, and it's historical. So you can't, that thing's not falling down. Not one brick is falling off that building. So then we look at the drawings of the shoring for the facade, and then how the phase is going to happen once you tear the facade down and put the building back in. But that was when we did that review of all those drawings and looked at all of the RFIs and change orders. It was a really, really low percentage. So that was great to see that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
So from a future standpoint, I mean, obviously we went through history and it was bouncing around quite a bit. Is this something you see yourself sticking with for a while? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I that's what I was saying is, bouncing around all these different contractors and CM firms. This is set. This is it.
This is the culmination of all that.
It's all
right?
kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's all coming together, and also building the relationships with all those clients on those projects.
Yeah, I would have to imagine that's probably where you're getting a lot of work, right? Too.
Yeah, owners as well as subcontractors. If I have some issues with some, I don't know everything, but if there's something I don't know, I'll call. I can pick up my phone and talk to a contractor I worked before and say, hey, how would you deal with this? Or have you ever dealt with this product? Because we do. We'll do internet searches of products too. So if there's something new that's out there that somebody's trying to put on a building, we'll look at the specs of what does that product really require in terms of installation. What's the backing requirements, what's the waterproofing going to be like, and make sure that the details comply with that manufacturer specifications. So this is it. I'm set. It's really been, the last 3 years have been great, seeing the amount of work that's coming in, and unfortunately seeing the drawings going down in terms of quality. And I'm not sure if it's COVID had anything to do with it, and everybody working remote, not in the same office, but the quality seems to be going down a little bit on the drawings right now. And
is that more of so you're saying COVID, so it sounds like more of a recent thing in the last year that you're seeing this?
Yeah, about the last year.
Downturn?
It's definitely really going down in the last year. Which is
it's kind of like job security, right?
I was going to say, if nothing else, it's job security, right?
Except all those architects are pissed at them.
Yeah, but it's also, it's sad to see the profession, being architecture. I'd like to see, architects really shining. So, but again, they've got a lot on their plate when they put these drawings together, a lot to consider, and especially with DSA, really focusing on fire and life safety. A lot of the finishes really don't get high on the priority.
What is there something to be said, and maybe just playing devil's advocate or playing the opposite side here, right? But is there something to be said from an architect standpoint that, hey, maybe I don't need to put as much time or effort into this, you know what I mean? Get the bones done and get it done so it looks like it's right, because it's going to go to CR anyway, somebody like you, right? Is there something to be said for that, right? If maybe there wasn't that middleman like you 15, 18 years ago, and so they had to be perfect, because if not, they were getting yelled at by the construction management team or the general contractor.
Or there were bad drawings, though. That's another thing. It could just be bad drawings, and then the contractor goes out and creates all sorts of issues, and then
like I said, just playing devil's advocate. Maybe they're getting a little
lazy.
You know, I don't want to say that. I mean, that's
Mike's coming in. We'll just here you go on a napkin.
No, Mike, I think you're right, because especially I did see that a little bit on that LAUSD program. Once they were required to have CRs done, they started, kind of easing back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they're on budgets, they're on timelines also.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, it's not because they're lazy. I think, like you said, they're on timelines. They have budgets. They don't, you know what I mean? If it's, hey, let's spend 40 hours of overtime over the next 2 weeks to make sure that these are done perfect, or no overtime because, they're going to get reviewed.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. But then that puts a larger burden on my team.
Right.
Because, we really want to get down in the nuts and the bolts.
Yeah.
Just because the exterior skin call out is missing. Well, once they figure that out, now they're going to have more details.
Another issue.
We're going to have to review.
Yeah.
So this project I'm working on right now, there's a new high school. We've got 3 buildings and we have 1,500 comments.
Wow.
So I just had a meeting with the design team. They say it's going to take them 3 months to go through all the comments.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you put all the comments together in what, a few weeks, probably?
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
That's
just
insane.
finished it yesterday. So yeah, we got 3 more buildings. We're probably gonna have another 1,500 comments on that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and the owner wants to go to construction in June. So I told him there's a June in every year.
You meant 2022, correct? Yeah.
But fortunately, they understand the importance of constructability review. He doesn't want to go out construction without having a complete set of documents. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like in any
it's
case, it's
architecture.
probably better off waiting a few months and being a lot more efficient than starting on time. And I feel like there's a point where you probably finish sooner if you do the constructability review than if you would have started the project earlier, right? I mean, there's something that could be an argument there for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, to the architect's defense on this project, it's kind of gone round and round on a couple different delivery methods in terms of a lease back, and now it's going hard bid. So those documents, and that's something we also take in consideration on the delivery method of what's a project.
Yeah, all over the place.
Because lease back's a little more forgiving on the documents for the contractor, being a little more responsible and picking up some of those things.
Yeah.
And then those multiple packages. So it's kind of gone round and round a little bit. So it's a little bit not their fault, but it's still, that's a lot of comments that they have to deal with. And,
I'm sure. Yeah. Sounds like a
a
clerical nightmare for sure that I don't want to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
we went into, obviously you've got some funny stories that we've heard already. I mean, some crazy stuff that you've kind of got into already, but before we let you run, is there anything else that sticks out? Any fun things that happened on job sites?
Yeah, I had this job. It was, I don't know if you want to call it crazy or funny, but I was working on Lava Scaro's pumping plant, big pumping plant down in kind of the South Bay area up here around San Francisco. And I was building a big setback levee on the Delta. I was going to start pumping water out of that. And then it was going to go, a couple miles inland, and then it was going to go to this big storage tanks that we were building also. But in between was, these water pipes that are 7-8 foot in diameter. And those things are, they're going to be flowing with water, a ton of water going through this. So they were digging, this is a separate contract under my contract, they were digging those ditches. Well, big trenches where they're going to be putting these water pipes. And my safety officer was telling me what had happened. He was up there and they had a big crane and they're putting, some shoring shields up. And the crane operator, he was doing them right. He set the shields down, but then he moved his crane, and then he wanted to move the shields without really looking at what those loads were going to be. Oh. So he picks the shields up again and he starts moving them, and the whole crane just starts tipping over into this big, it's probably about a 30-foot deep trench with a 20-inch high pressure gas line that's going straight across the trench.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's active pressure gas. So as the crane, the safety officer was telling me, he's like, as a crane operator kind of felt the crane kind of tipping over, he was smart enough to move his boom to miss that high pressure gas line. So he showed me the pictures, and it was, I mean, just literally blocks away from where I was. Shows me pictures of the crane upside down. And I was like, well, how was the operator? Was he seatbelted in? Because usually, you know, sometimes they don't seatbelt. He's like, oh yeah, he was. He's like, but when the crane tipped over, the seat pulled completely out of the floor. It fell through the window. And fortunately, he wasn't that high off the ground. And right below the window was the seat that he was seatbelted in. Yeah. So, yeah. So it was it was kind of a
So, I mean, how do you explain that? Like, I flew through the windshield. Well, you should have had your seatbelt on. I did. The whole seat came out. I mean, at that point, you're calling the crane manufacturer and saying, we need a few more bolts in this seat. Oh, my goodness.
That was kind of a crazy story. It could have been much worse if he hit that high pressure gas
for
line.
sure.
For sure, man.
Yeah, would have been a big disaster.
We would have felt that down here in Orange County.
Yeah.
That would have been a big boom. Yeah.
It's I mean, there's always stories on construction sites that happen that are pretty unfortunate, but fortunately I've never had anybody seriously injured on any of my jobs.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think at that job I had one plumber that got a couple fingers crushed, and that was about it.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I've been fortunate. So we haven't had to call you guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Very cool, man. Well, we appreciate the time. It's been awesome. The knowledge and the history that you have is
awesome,
second to none as far as our guests go. So it's been fun to hang out and listen to all the stories and I'm glad all
we could finally
knowledge
connect.
for sure.
Yeah. And I've been a huge fan of the podcast too. So I've turned you guys on to a bunch of my contractors.
Yeah, that's what you told me last week. Like,
very cool.
Man.
Well, we appreciate the
especially with with the COVID too. We're getting a lot of insight on how people are dealing with COVID.
Yeah.
Because that's
that was a big hot button right when we started. I mean, that was
we started
hit the fan a week and a half after we
I think
launched.
our first episode's kind of unofficially launched the end of February, but they officially launched beginning of March 2020, right?
Oh, wow.
And 2 weeks later, we have a microphone on the other side of this computer that we bought, a third mic, so that we could have all these in-house guests. Yeah, that didn't happen. I think our first 20 episodes were all on Zoom. So
yeah,
totally crazy, man.
It's definitely been a little challenging, but fortunately for me, the work has still been there. So it was a little lull, but again, a lot of these projects have been kind of in the process. So my business hasn't really slowed down that much. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool, Mike. Well, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Before we let you run, we want to make sure we give everybody a shout out. Let them know how to get a hold of you, how to find you.
Yeah, I mean, I got a website out there, but really just my email. It's me.eccr@att.net.
Perfect.
So that's ECCR is the company name, and then just my initials at the front, me.eccr@att.net. Yeah, no, I'm always looking for, what I like is retired project managers, construction managers, engineers. That's the majority of my labor pool. And what's nice is we can do it from anywhere. So, I got a house in Mexico, so I'll work from Mexico. I got a van and I do all my mountain biking trips in. So I work out of my van wherever I'm at. So all my team is very flexible too. So we can do it whenever, wherever. So always looking for people, always looking for projects. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, man. We appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Nice
we'll see you around. Keep in touch. Hopefully keep listening and stay safe out there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, sir.
All right, you guys take it easy.
Yep.
And we're out.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.